Thank you very much, Wendy. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, audience. We very much appreciate your engagement this evening on May 6, 2021. Frank Garcia, Executive Director from Portland, Oregon, here on behalf of Immigration Counseling Service and the governing board of ICS. I appreciate that very much. Excited to be here and want to thank you again for your time. For 42 years, ICS has been fighting for and defending the rights of the immigration community throughout Oregon and Southwest Washington. We are immigrant advocates, and we use our knowledge of the word and law in the courtroom to help all Oregonians fully live out their American dream. We provide legal care to Oregon's undocumented residents, residents with green cards, DACistas, dreamers, victims of crimes, victims of trafficking, individuals in deportation proceedings, and of course, minors arriving at the border without parents or guardians. We are here as a lifeline and safe harbor for those Oregonians, and our goal is to provide them with reassurance and stability that their journey to citizenship will indeed become a reality. As you know, we are currently in a historic pandemic, and it has tested our organization and the community we serve like no other test in recent times. In the spring of last year, we recognized what was happening in our community and the pain that they were enduring. And we recognized that they were just moments away from becoming homeless. They were concerned and continue to be concerned about a roof over their head and food on the table. Their lives obviously have been very difficult prior to the pandemic. And let's not forget the wildfires that took place over Labor Day weekend of last year. With these events that happened with the pandemic and the wildfires, it really tested this organization to a point where we needed to step up and meet them even more so in real time and reassure them that we would continue to be with them along that journey. So we became relaxed in our filing fees and our consults, and we waived them and began starting to offer them at no cost. $50,000 later in filing fees waived, we're at a point where we need to replenish those funds in our innovative Immigration Legal Relief Fund that was created this last year to be responsive in real time to this community that we serve. So ICS has expanded its reach through this pandemic. We have offices in Hood River. We have clinics that we offer in Central Oregon and in the Willamette Valley. We are currently offering legal services to those displaced by the fires in the Rogue Valley and continue to provide other kinds of legal support as we come in contact with them on a more continuous basis. The pandemic has allowed us through technology to improve and increase access and reach to communities that historically have foregone immigration access. And I'm so happy that we've invested in the technology and just stepped up to the community and created ways to make ourselves extremely relevant during this pandemic. And it's that serves as our inspiration for today and today's forum to give you an update as to how we see things are unfolding with introduced, and they're each going to talk about what they're seeing through their lens within their programs. But today also is this campaign that we're launching to replenish these funds, to continue this inspiring work led by experience and their pursuit of citizenship. and all the benefits of becoming a citizen in this country and that American dream. And so I am honored and humbled as the executive director to lead this amazing organization. And on behalf of the board, I thank you for your time this evening. And now I'm going to introduce, as we introduce the video that's going to announce the campaign. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And to my left is Isaac Alley. He's our managing attorney and oversees our legal operations for the organization. To my right is Claire Fawcett, who is our managing attorney for the unaccompanied minors program. And to her right is Selby Abram, who is a recent attorney and green cards and naturalization process programs. So, and then again, I don't want to forget Wendy Roman, who also serves as my executive assistant, but put this program together with development and communications. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And without further ado, let's roll the video.
Okay, brilliant. I'm going to share my screen and share this video with you all. If one of our panelists could just confirm that you can see it and you can hear it. Once I get that. Okay.
I see the screen up, Wendy.
Can you hear it?
I cannot hear it, Wendy.
Okay. Give me 1 second. As always, we have optimize. Okay. Let me start this over. Immigration status is necessary for an immigrant to acquire the most basic of human rights. Can you hear it? If someone could confirm very quickly.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. To freedom from violence and poverty
yes,
and
discrimination. If you could expand it, that would be great.
Immigration status allows people to access healthcare, seek educational opportunities, and provides the ability to earn a living wage. In Oregon today, we are seeing immigrant families struggling to pay bills while living in the shadows. We are seeing dreamers abandon their DACA applications, and we are seeing our community members confront the constant fear of ICE detention. However, this is not a future that has to persist.
One of the top priorities for the Biden administration is immigration reform.
Dreamers are doctors, nurses, lab technicians, contact tracers, and job creators. Dreamers are on the front lines of COVID-19. They strengthen our economy and they make invaluable contributions to America.
We must give them the same opportunities and protections that they deserve as Americans.
Immigration Counseling Service is launching a campaign to raise $30,000 in 30 days for our innovative Immigrant Legal Relief Fund. This fund ensures immigrant Oregonians have access to skilled immigration attorneys that will fight for them and their families during every step of their immigration process. We believe it is our responsibility to respond to the pain and the hardship that our immigrant neighbors are facing. Without status, immigrants are condemned to living in society's shadows, vulnerable to exploitation and unrelenting fear. But your donation to the Immigrant Legal Relief Fund can change this course of action.
You can help by making a donation to the Immigrant Legal Relief Fund today.
Thank you so much for putting up with those slight technical difficulties. And now we're going to turn it over to our first presenter of the night, Selby Abraham. There we go. Sorry, my sound was still on.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Selby Abraham, and I am a staff attorney with Immigration Counseling Services. And for this part of the town hall, I'm going to be talking about the DACA program in 2021. I'm going to address three main questions. One is, what is the program in its current iteration right now? Number two, what is the outlook for DACA in the near future? And three, what is it that we're doing at ICS to help support dreamers and beneficiaries of DACA? So before I continue, a little bit about myself. I am a staff attorney, as I mentioned, with ICS, and I work at the Portland office with the general programs. And of the cases that I take, I help with DACA applications, as well as legal permanent residence status and citizenship, among other things like other forms of humanitarian relief. Personally, I've helped over 200 clients with DACA, and I can say wholeheartedly through them, I've seen how life-changing the program can be. It's truly transcendental, and I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit more about it. So let's talk about this first question about what is the program right now. I think it's good to have a little bit of background and context. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about DACA, but let's make sure we're all on the same page here. So of course, DACA stands for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's a program that started by then President Obama in 2012. He announced it on the White House lawn. There's a few key points that are important to point out. First is that it is an executive order and it is not law. It is a memorandum that he released. It's basically a presidential action that one can put out, but that could easily very much be taken away from another president in the future. DACA is called deferred action, and by itself, it is not legal status. And I think that's an important distinction because DACA by itself does not give someone a permanent right to stay here. It's almost like a temporary permission that someone can apply for. The intention of the program was and is for young people who were brought here to the United States and at a very early age, and they've remained here in the US since then. And then they've gone through grade school and they're either in high school now or they've graduated from high school or have had some equivalent like a GED program. And to apply for DACA, there is an actual application form that needs to be filled out and submitted to the US government through USCIS or the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And so you fill out the form, and to apply for DACA, there is a filing fee of $495. So what is the benefit for DACA? Well, besides deferred action, which is kind of a temporary status, it allows someone to have work permission, which can be renewed every 2 years, opportunity to get a driver's license or state ID, and a valid social security number. And so those are very important benefits to have. And before I continue, I do want to speak personally to my own experience having worked with DACA beneficiaries. I found DACA to really be a lifeline of upward mobility. DACA opens doors for higher education, opportunities for scholarships, a better chance to go to and afford college, job and skills training, as well as opportunity to secure loans for automobiles, home ownership, and really a pure investment into the local community from which these young people were raised. I personally have represented DACA clients who've gone on to become engineers, those who've been able to start their own businesses, including some folks who moved on to become essential healthcare workers, which is relevant, of course, for the last year. So really, DACA has had a very profound effect on those who've secured and been able to obtain this benefit. So with all that positive news, of course, in 2017, the Trump administration tried to cancel DACA. And so what happened then is, well, lawsuits ensued. And then the USCIS, the immigration office, in effect, while the lawsuits were pending, only processed renewal applications, which meant that people who applied for DACA previously could continue to renew it. But by September 2017 and moving forward, if you had never had DACA or never had applied before, you were not allowed to apply thereafter for the first time. And so that kept going for approximately 3 years until, of course, last year, the Supreme Court of the United States in June issued a decision regarding DACA and the attempt to cancel the program. Of course, they decided that the way that Trump's administration tried to cancel the program was done improperly. And so their decision was to restore DACA in its entirety and to move it back to the way it was when the program started. And so what that effect came was immigration started to receive initial applications for the first time in 3 years. So as you can imagine, there are people who've been waiting for over 3 years now to apply for DACA. And now USCIS has opened the processes to allow for initial applications for the first time. All right. So this is a plug beyond all of you joining us for this town hall tonight. If you are connected with anyone who might benefit from DACA or a consultation with us, DACA is open for new consultations. So our strong recommendation is that please connect with us so that we can assist folks and get them on the right path, that maybe if DACA is an opportunity that we can help them with that process. Now, the next question is about what is the outlook for DACA in the near future? And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of uncertainty coming down the pike. So why is that? Well, really, there's two main factors going on. One has to do with Congress and whether or not they're going to push forward with immigration reform. And the other is a pending lawsuit down in Texas for whether or not the DACA program is going to be deemed illegal and possibly go away again. So we have this issue of Congress versus the court once again. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, this race I should talk about. We have the Dream and Promise Act, which right now is legislation that's in Congress. It's a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. So it's a proposal that would allow for people who are eligible to apply for citizenship in due time. It's already passed the House, and that passed on March 18th, and now it's before the Senate. And really, it's unpredictable how much longer it will take, whether it'll pass or not. But right now, that's the situation with the Dream and Promise Act. Simultaneously, we have this really significant lawsuit that's being heard down in Texas in a federal district court in Houston. And it's a lawsuit that was started in 2018 by 9 states that said, you know what, this DACA program, it's illegal. And so they're presenting before this judge this question of the legality of DACA. And it is different from the lawsuit that was before the Supreme Court last year. The Supreme Court last year decided that Trump's administration trying to cancel DACA back in 2017, they said that was improperly done. And so it didn't speak to the legality of the program itself. It just said, trying to take it away the way you did it was improper. So go back to the way it was before. Still hanging is this question about whether the DACA program is legal to begin with. And that's what this judge down in Texas is hearing. Most recently, there was a status conference where Texas argued that the Senate's taking way too long with this Dream and Promise Act. So this judge, who's been holding off on his decision since December, they're saying, please, judge, make this decision right now. So this is the looming question that's happening with the future of DACA. Will this judge, his name is Judge Hannon, he's a federal district judge for the Southern District of Texas in Houston. Is he going to wait on Congress to act, or is he going to actually issue a ruling on the legality of DACA? And if he does rule that the DACA program is deemed illegal, as being argued by Texas and these other states, the decision really puts the future of the DACA program in peril. And so that's really this air of uncertainty that we're operating in at this current moment. So what is it that ICS does? What can we do? And the collective we really is that we're looking to all of you participants in this town hall to support us and be a supportive community for our dreamers in the meantime. Well, first and foremost, of course, we want to advocate and push our lawmakers to pass the Dream and Promise Act and advocate for immigration reform. In addition to being a staff attorney with ICS, I sit on the executive committee with the American Immigration Lawyers Association with the Oregon chapter. And last month we had the opportunity to meet with our congressional delegates, including, here's me smiling in the middle, and down right is Senator Jeff Merkley. We had a chance to meet with the senator as well as Senator Wyder's office and our other congressional delegates to talk to them specifically about this moment in time for which we want immigration reform, especially for the Dream and Promise Act. And we presented the idea before him, and he's completely on board. In the specific case of Senator Merkley, he really is an ally for our community. And we asked, like, what's going on? And his response was, really, it's held up because it's lacking bipartisan support in the Senate at this point. It's hard to say what's going on with the Republican lawmakers, whether or not they will agree to it. And so it hasn't been up for a vote to this point. And really, it's unclear if and when that will be presented up for a vote. But it is good to have that firsthand knowledge, but at the same time, it doesn't add to any predictability for what will happen in the near future for DACA. So in addition to that, we here at ICS, our main motivation is to assist clients to apply for DACA now. Like I said, between 2017 and the end of 2020, there were 3 years for which people who had never applied weren't allowed to. And now the window of opportunity is open. So we are fast forwarding any folks who are interested in a consultation. We're waiving the fees for consultation. We're trying to coordinate and organize folks in order to prepare an application if they are eligible, so that we could do it in a diligent way. I should also say, similarly, last year on May Day, ICS put on a May Day DACA clinic where we served over 40 individuals in one day to renew their DACA application. And we rendered services in excess of $30,000, and we completely waived that fee. Because I think as an organization, we have a commitment to these DACA beneficiaries and these dreamers, and now these new potential dreamers, to prioritize them and their opportunity to apply for this benefit while the window of opportunity is there. And then, of course, this third piece is supporting our dreamers to break down the cost barriers. I've done a lot of consultations these last few months since DACA has reopened. And the one consistent theme I've come across again and again is that I mentioned there's a $495 filing fee. You know, for a lot of folks, that doesn't seem like a lot, or, you know, that's something you could throw together pretty easily, because why not? This is such an important opportunity. But when we work with families who have mixed income, low income, mixed status, there's a lot of other immediate needs, including housing, food, healthcare, that maybe immigration fees don't top the list. And I've seen it, and it's frustrating to know that the $495 filing fee could become a barrier. And so for us, as part of this campaign, as part of this town hall, we're asking each and every one of you to please donate to our Immigrant Legal Relief Fund. It really has an immediate impact, because we can then turn to folks who are worried about the cost of submitting an application and saying, listen, we have people who are looking out for you, who are looking out for us to be able to support you, because we know that this form of relief through this temporary DACA program is life-changing, and we want to give you that opportunity. So if interested, $500 to cover the cost, any amount that's comfortable for you, it's going a long way. And so we thank you in advance for the support, for being present this evening, and for the consideration. You could donate specifically at our website at ics-law.org/donate. And thank you again for being part of this town hall this evening. So I'm going to stop there, and I am now going to pass over the presentation to our Portland Managing Attorney, Mr. Isaac Alley.
Thank you, Selby. That was a great presentation. I think it really brings out a lot of what we do at ICS and how we can help transform lives in our community so we all benefit. I'm going to speak about deportation or removal defense. So give me just a minute to pull up my presentation. Click the Zoom button. Okay, so yes, removal, otherwise known as deportation, is another important component of our office. We endeavor to help anyone that needs it in deportation proceedings. It's often a very stressful process, understandably, and it's been very complicated these last 4 years. So let me get to my next slide here. Sorry about this. It's not doing it. There we go. Okay, this is me, sorry. Yes, I'm the managing attorney. I oversee the Equity Corps program, which is our deportation defense program. I also oversee our general immigration program, which covers everything from trafficking victims, victims of severe crimes, to families looking to process spouses and children. And I also oversee our rural outreach programs. ICS has made diligent efforts to expand our presence throughout the state of Oregon. Unfortunately, there are real barriers for Oregonians who do not live in the metro area in particular. So we host a clinic with partners in Albany and also in Redmond, Bend area. And I think as Frank alluded to earlier, we've been doing a series of campaigns in Southern Oregon with other partners. What we found through studies is that the farther you get from Portland in the immigration court, the harder it is for people to find affordable services. And this has been a real challenge for our state that we're trying to step to with partners. So with that, I was gonna ask a question. I jumped the gun a bit here. And my question was simply this. Does a person in removal proceedings have a right to counsel if they cannot afford an attorney? And the answer is no, they do not. If you cannot afford an attorney, you have to go to court by yourself. And the results are predictably not great. So if you don't mind, in the chat function, I'd like you to answer this next question or guess at it. What % of people in removal proceedings actually do secure an attorney? I'll give you a moment to type in your guess. Okay, the answer is about 37% of people nationally secure an attorney for their deportation defense. That's it, so it's less than half. Now, this is again, mostly because people who are in place of deportation proceedings are predominantly those fleeing terrible situations and asking for protection in the United States. Having fled from terrible circumstances, they often don't have any resources but the clothing on their backs. And when they're placed in proceedings without any support, they are forced to try to understand a very complex legal system without any assistance. Okay, next question. Again, please put your guesses in the chat function. How much more likely is someone to win their case with the assistance of an attorney? Okay, the answer is 5 times more likely. Yes, 5 times more likely to win their case with the assistance of an attorney. And it gets worse. Unfortunately, those who do not procure an attorney are 5 times more likely to give up before even having their day in court. In other words, they don't go to the ending where they talk to the judge and ask for protection. They simply give up and accept deportation. So if you take those two figures and multiply them, there's up to a 25 times difference between someone with an attorney and without an attorney in terms of their access to justice and their ability to successfully present their case, which is incorrigible. I mean, you should win or lose depending on the facts of your case, not based on your access to legal resources. So ICS has been representing folks in removal proceedings since our inception 40 years ago. But the needs in the community are monumental and they're more than our office alone could respond to. So in response to that deficit, ICS teamed up with our sister nonprofits in Oregon to create the Equity Corps program. And the Equity Corps program was our first attempt at providing universal representation to those in immigration proceedings if they could not afford counsel themselves. It was largely a success. It was a lot of work, but we were able to provide access to an attorney for everyone who could not afford it. Unfortunately, the program is going to end next month for lack of ongoing funding. We are working on a bill in the legislature to take Equity Corps and actually improve upon it, to expand it to provide even more access. But regardless of how that bill turns out, ICS will remain in the courts and will keep fighting for folk. So what did we learn from Equity Corps? Well, for me personally, what I learned was that basically there is a refugee crisis in Central America and parts of Mexico. The murder rate, the people being disappeared in El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico routinely tops the world charts in terms of deaths per capita. And what happens is that people lose faith in their government because the police either are inept or unresponsive. And at some point, they just run to the border to ask for help. The US, for better or worse, is seen as a place where they can achieve some basic security for them and their families. So to kind of help provide a human focus to this crisis, I'd like to talk about Jessica. Jessica's a client I'm working with right now. It's not her real name, and I have changed some of the details to preserve her confidentiality. But Jessica's story is like so many people we've worked with over the last few years. Jessica is a single mother. Jessica has 3 boys. Jessica was born in a small village in Guatemala, grew up speaking a dialect, which is like a Mayan language. She had a humble life, but she was proud of her family. She and her partner, having not received much access to education themselves, both worked very hard to provide for their children so they could go to school full-time and not work. And that was really a big ambition for her, and it remains so. Unfortunately, her husband, who was a bus driver, was told to pay taxes, extortion, to the local cartel that controls her area of Guatemala. And unfortunately, much of Guatemala and other countries in Central America and parts of Mexico are effectively controlled by cartels and transnational criminal organizations. So they collect taxes, they set regulations, they tell you where you can work, and they effectively own the police. So her husband was told to pay his taxes. He refused to do so, and he was murdered in his bus. Then they attempted to recruit her sons to join the gangs. Now, for Jessica, this is something she could not stand. She wanted her sons to grow up moral, and also, again, to pursue an education so they could add value to the world. So she went to the police to report these threats to her son, join us or else. But the police, instead of helping them, then went and informed the cartels, who were their real masters. So faced without any other option, she took her boys and she ran to the US border. That's about 3,000 miles. When she got to the US border, unfortunately, she was told she could not enter. Now, just so you know, the US is a signatory to a treaty where anyone who comes to the border has a legal right to ask for protection if they need it. But unfortunately, during the previous presidency, they closed the border to folks and said, instead, here's a number, get in line, we'll help you when we can. So Jessica and her 3 boys were put in an impossible situation. They were subsequently kidnapped at the border because unfortunately predators know that there's lots of people there that don't have anyone to protect them. They escaped the kidnapping and went to a shelter. The shelter rejected them. They were homeless for a month and then eventually begged their way into a shelter. Jessica was then subsequently sexually assaulted. She went back to the border and begged for entry. Based on that assault, they said yes, but they said you could only bring 2 of your 3 children. So she entered with 2 of her 3 boys, leaving one behind to fend for himself. And he has been there by himself for the last 2 years. So during this 2-year period, we've been fighting with Jessica in court and out of court to try to get her some protection. And I have some good news. The courts are starting to thaw. The son just returned and reunited with his mother last week. And Jessica is very thrilled to see her son. He is safe. but it's been an epic journey. And another sign of thawing, Jessica's had to wear an ankle monitor for the last 2 years. When she sleeps, when she's in the shower, it's large, it's caused swelling and discomfort. And we've been constantly negotiating with ICE to have this removed, and we've been told they will remove the ankle bracelet. So I just want you to think about this. She had to go through all that gauntlet, all that trouble and hardship, just to have a chance to tell a judge her story. So how long does it take to talk to a judge? About 3 years. That is the average wait between when you initiate proceedings and when you actually get to talk to a judge about why you want protection in the United States. It's not great. And now you can start to see why the presence of a lawyer in a law office like ours to support folks is so essential to them, just to endure the legal process to the point where they can present to a judge. And then with the judge and an attorney, we can best present their facts so they have the best chance to win their case. So where do you come in? Well, unfortunately, many applications for relief, things that stop deportation, are predicated on, you guessed it, filing fees. There is an application called cancellation or removal. So for example, if you were to be married to a US citizen and that person had cancer, and you ask the judge not to deport you so you can support your sick spouse, you have to pay a filing fee to even have a chance to present that issue to a judge. Also, there's ancillary applications that can stop deportation proceedings. I had a client, he was unfortunately the victim of a firearm offense, not his own fault, he's just getting a cup of coffee, but he helped the police catch the bad guy. And in return, they agreed to sign what's called a U certification. It's a visa for people that are victims of crimes, serious ones, and they help law enforcement get the bad person. That can also stop deportation. That application is also quite expensive when you ask for the waiver piece to it, about $930. So you can see each of these applications has a fee that comes with it, but for the filing fee, they can't get their justice. They can't get their day in court to ask for the judge to not deport them, which again, the goal is the justice system is to let them have their day to present their case as best they can, and under an objective system of laws, be protected or told they need to go home. But more often than not, they don't even get to that stage for all these barriers. I have been talking quite a bit and I appreciate your patience. But again, any donation you can make to this fund would help so many who are very vulnerable. And as we get them more protections, they're able to start rebuilding their lives. So Jessica, for example, was able to get a work authorization. And with that work authorization, she got a social security number with which she was able to procure an apartment and find some employment to begin to support her and her children. It's not a glamorous existence, but it's safe, it has dignity, and it's gotten her and her children where they can now pursue their education and start to revisit what their dreams are. And I have no doubt that given an opportunity, they're going to be real contributors to our community. These are very ambitious, smart people that just have not had basic security in their lives to date. Well, that concludes my presentation. Next, I'm going to pass the microphone to my coworker, Claire.
Hi, everyone. Just a moment while I get my screen up and running here. Okay. Hi, I'm Claire Fawcett. I'm the managing attorney of the Unaccompanied Children's Program here at ICS. Right now, our Unaccompanied Children's Program provides both limited and full scope representation to children housed in 3 detention centers in Portland, Oregon, and we just received funding under our new contract to begin to provide representation to children who are released to sponsors in Oregon in their removal cases. I think the first thing I just wanted to ask as a kind of guess, if you have a guess, is how many children you think are currently in Health and Human Services custody. As of the latest date I could find was the 26th of April. So If you want to stick your answers into the chat, that would be great. And let me just see if I can. So the answer is, as of the 26th, 22,103 children were in Office of Refugee Resettlement Custody, which is part of Health and Human Services. So as you can see, now more than ever, children are arriving at the border. There's a lot of misconceptions about this. One of the biggest reasons that there's so many children entering now is because the Trump administration was not allowing children to enter at the border. He was using Title 42, I believe, which is a public health law to say that children should not be allowed to enter because of COVID-19. So when the Biden administration took power, they not only started to let the children who came to the border today enter, but those children who came to the border a year ago and have been waiting in Mexico this whole time. I think it's important to talk about what these kids endure, and by the time they get to the border and by the time they see immigration counseling service, because I think it gives a really good background. The majority of our clients are unaccompanied children, and that basically means they have come to the border without a parent or legal guardian. They leave their homes in Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Mexico for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's familial violence, gang violence, lack of opportunity, poverty. There's been a lot of kids displaced by the hurricanes that have been happening in their home countries that have come to the border because their families lost their homes and had no other option. And then they endure the long journey here. Some of them are brought by guides called coyotes. Others come completely on their own, by foot, by bus, hitchhiking, and sometimes on the tops of trains. Almost all of them endure hunger and thirst on their way, and many of them endure being the victims of crimes such as trafficking, robbery, sexual assault, and other crimes. Then they arrive at the border, and some of them try to sneak through the border, and some of them go through ports of entry and present themselves. Biden is now allowing children to enter the country, and when they enter, they're placed in Customs and Border Protection detention. And we've seen them detained anywhere from a few hours to 10 days in Customs and Border Protection facilities. These facilities are often overcrowded. Children are often put in what's called the hielera, the ice box, where for several days it's very cold. ICE has given no real explanation about why this is used. They often are only fed twice a day rather than 3 times a day, have to sleep on a cement floor, aren't given bedding, sometimes mistreated by ICE officers. So a lot of them endure a lot just even arriving in the US to a place where they thought they were going to be safe. And after they go through CBP custody, then they're finally transferred to Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Resettlement Custody. And that's where we usually see them. So when we see the children, we do one of 2 things. For children who are just arriving from the border and are going to be reunified with a parent, another relative, or a family friend, we provide legal screenings and know your rights presentations. And for children who are not able to be reunified with anyone, they actually have to be detained long-term, and we provide them with representation. In our process, we try to provide trauma-informed care because of the amount of things that these children have been through by the time they come here. We have a social worker on our staff, Audrey Engel-Eshelman, and she works with the minors as well as the other service providers involved in their cases. We try to have a child-centric form of representation where we try to simply explain the forms of relief and their options in their case and allow our clients to make informed decisions about their case. And we provide trainings to our staff about trauma-informed approach, and we regularly consult with Audrey to try to troubleshoot issues that we're having in particular cases. The other thing we do is just try to communicate with minors' former attorneys or other legal service providers that have screened them to make sure that we try to limit re-traumatization and get the information before we have to have them retell their traumatic story. So I mentioned this a little bit briefly. So those minors who have sponsors, when they're in ORR care, basically ORR does a series of background checks with the potential sponsors, and then eventually they're released to the sponsors in whatever state that may be. We see those children on the front end, and we do legal screenings and know your rights presentations. We generally don't represent them because they could be released to any state in the US. So we refer them to legal service providers in the state where their sponsor is located. When they're released, that's not the end of the story. They remain in deportation proceedings. And so they have to attend court. And in addition to that, unlike the adult process where for many cases, your case is presented in court, minors are able to present their case to immigration, the Office of Immigration, sorry. So, and then those who don't have sponsors, basically they could remain in detention until they turn 18. We're lucky in Oregon that we screen the children for dependency, for their dependency case before they're transferred to the long-term group home facility here. And then the children that we represent are able to be released to Oregon foster care. Unfortunately, the process can take a long time for them to be released. And in the meantime, just like the children are released to sponsors, they're also in removal proceedings, and we help them to submit applications to relief, for relief to the immigration offices. Usually, all of the children we represent have to wait for a very long period of time to be granted immigration relief. We've seen one asylum interview in the past year. And our other children who qualify for something called special immigrant juvenile status, which I'll explain later, that type of status limits the number of kids it has per country caps. And so many of the kids are from the same group of countries, which are included in one per country cap, that they have to wait several years before they can be granted status. For some reason, okay, there we go. So I just wanted to kind of provide a little background on our clients, because I think we often separate ourselves. When we see these stories, it seems very foreign to us, but you can see from these drawings that our clients did that they're much like any other child. If you don't read Spanish, the first kid, basically the first picture on your top left says my family and my house, and it has brother, me, I think it says grandfather, aunt, and grandmother. And then it says, I want to be with my family, to study, and in the future to work and have my things. The second set of pictures on the top right-hand side, it doesn't have any words, but you can see that it says my family and my house, and then has a group of homes there. And then it says below that, I want to have a house and to be with my family so that my baby is okay. So just to let you know a little bit about what forms of relief these kids generally apply for. Usually, these kids are eligible for asylum and special immigrant juvenile status. There are other forms of relief as well. But asylum, most people have heard about. It's for minors who are fearful of returning due to past harm or future harm based on one of the 5 grounds that I listed. And then they submit an application to immigration, and then they're scheduled for an interview before an immigration officer. And they present their story in that interview, and then if the officer does not approve them, they refer them to court, and the kid has another chance to present their case in court. Special immigrant juvenile status is completely different, and it's not as well known. It's for kids who were abandoned, abused, or neglected by one or both parents. And they basically get an order from state court that grants custody either to the sponsor that they're living with, or in our case, to ORDHS, Office of Oregon Department of Human Services. I was just getting a reminder to not use acronyms, and I'm sorry, that's a very lawyer thing to do, and it's not good. But anyway, so and then with that order, they go to the immigration office. They submit a form called a special immigrant juvenile status form, and then they're basically placed in line to wait for a green card. And once they reach the front of that line, then they are finally able to apply for the green card. Some of the children that we've seen have been waiting for green cards for 3 years. The longest wait is a kid that applied in 2016, and he's still waiting for his green card. So we do receive funding for these cases, but there are large portions of these cases that our funding does not cover. For instance, our funding ends when the kid is granted relief in the first instance. Many of the kids are granted asylee status, but they're eligible to be legal permanent residents a year afterwards. Many of them are still, trying to support themselves, trying to go to school. They don't have the money to pay us to become residents or to do the work so that they can become residents. And then, and a lot of kids, most of the kids, by the time they're eligible for naturalization, are not funded anymore by the VERA program, which is our funder for the unaccompanied children. So how can you help? You can donate to the Immigration Legal Relief Fund. You can go to our website. Just to give you an example, and I know my time is basically up, I have one client, and I'll call her Maria. She grew up, she had very little education. She was forced to go work in the home of someone and stay there, without parents when she was about 8 years old. She experienced pretty severe family abuse in her home of origin, and then she also experienced sexual abuse in the home in which she was a servant. She fled her country because of threats from the wife of one of her employers, and because of the family abuse. She now, she was detained in our long-term group home facility. We were successful in getting her released to Oregon foster care. She now lives with a foster family. She is about to graduate from high school. She wants to become a nurse, and she's trilingual now. So she speaks her indigenous language, Spanish and English, and she's doing very well. She has a work permit, and in fact is applying for several internships. So it's just another story in how far people can come with determination and help along the way. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Claire, for sharing that incredible story. And thank you to all of our participants tonight. And thank you to our audience for sharing this moment with us. to acknowledge the comment in the chat. Often even us as advocates, as continuous participants in our communities, we get caught up in the legal jargon. Going forward, we will continue to hold town halls like this, presentations like this, and we take all feedback very seriously. So we will try our very best to not use these acronyms that many in our community may not be familiar with. So thank you, Wyatt, for that feedback, and we will take it into mind as we continue reaching out to community members. At this time, once more, I want to express my gratitude to all of you. We know that some of these conversations can be very difficult. They can be very heavy. Often it is easy to feel powerless when you hear so many stories of people that are hurting, the crises that are happening at our border. But I want to reassure everyone that this is not the time to feel powerless. You do not need to feel powerless, because so many people are stepping up to build back together and build back stronger. We really accomplish so many aspects of community and growth and healing when we do it together. And that's why we open up these forums for us to share in these moments, to share in these stories, and to empower each other to be members of the community and to stand up for one another. So like we've mentioned today, our campaign took off today. The Immigrant Legal Relief Fund is now taking donations so we can cover those filing fees for all of the clients that we serve, not only in our general program, not only our unaccompanied minors, not only our people that are in deportation proceedings. We really are here to provide for people that reach out to us. Our mission is to break down these barriers and help people reach stability, because our communities, they're made stronger by immigrants. They're made more whole by immigrants. Immigration is the foundation of this country. And I believe that we together can really create a more healed United States, a more healed Oregon, and a more welcoming Oregon. So please, once more, ics-law.org/donate. If you are unable to donate, we understand that. Share this message with your families, with your friends who may be able to participate. You can follow us on Facebook for additional presentations. At this time, we want to be respectful of your nights. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our Executive Director, Frank Garcia, for your leadership. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on our website or on our social media pages. We are here to serve you. We are here for our community. We are stronger when we build back together. Thank you all so much. We hope you have a great night. Bye, everyone.